Welcome to the channel. My name is Yacht. My family and I are documenting our journey to find a place where we can be happy, safe, enjoy a healthy outdoor lifestyle with a relatively low cost of living. So tag along during our search for this special place. Here in Lagos, at the, downtown and Fort area, and the local beach. It's hot as shit. I got on a wool sweater, and a long sleeve shirt up under. I could put on some swimming trunks and a t-shirt, but it's dope. There we go. Thanks for checking out the channel. So this particular video, we're going to be discussing Lagos in Portugal, down in the Algarve. I spent a few days down there checking out the city, and I just want to, give my initial impressions, some of the pros and cons of the things that I found, but also, kind of talking about my overall feeling of the city. And hopefully people find this helpful, when they're considering looking at particular cities in Portugal and also deciding whether or not to make that particular place their preferred home or destination. So I'll jump right into it. So I'll start off with the pros. First and foremost, the city is absolutely gorgeous. So I actually had Praia de Luz as my home base while down in the Algarve. And so I would drive into the other cities and towns and just, spend a couple days there, just checking it out and trying to get a feel for the city. And the first thing that I would say when you enter into the walled and old town city of Lagos, you enter through these massive arches. It was absolutely amazing to kind of to feel the oldness and the history of those walls and that old town, and just the initial vibe of people walking around. They just seem to be happy to be there. People out eating breakfast and at their local restaurants, drinking coffee at the cafes, and just having a good time. So that was the initial vibe that I noticed right away, was that people actually enjoy being there. And then you talk about the actual history of the town itself, the city itself. I mean, I won't go into a long drawn out history about it, but I think it's pretty interesting. It's roughly over 2,000 years old, and various people have owned and kind of ruled the town, starting off with, the Carthaginians. They kind of ruled the city for quite some time. And then, the Celtics, the Romans, I believe, the Visigoths, the Byzantines, the Moors, and I take that back. The Romans did. No, I believe there's still ruins from the Roman time period. So, yeah, it's really cool, just to put it that way. So beyond the history of it, it's well preserved compared to some of the other Portuguese towns and villages that I visited. I'm talking to you, Caldish. But to say the least is that, it's beautiful. You can walk around for hours and never bore and grow tired of it. So, that's pro number one. Pro number two, convenience. Shopping galore. So you have a bunch of little shops throughout the walled city, around the city. Then you have pretty much the pick of the litter when it comes to grocery stores. So they have all the major big grocery stores. There's Intermarché, Continent, Pico Doce, Lidl, Aldi. And then they have like the little mini mercados as well, like Spar and stuff like that you can check out if you need something quick and you don't want to kind of, go slightly outside of the walled city to get, milk or pastries or whatever. So you have that option. Then on top of that, you have like your home renovation type of stores. So I think it's called Brico Marché, which is similar to Home Depot, Lowe's, and Ace Hardware here in the United States. But you have that type of thing there as well. And then you have furniture stores. You pretty much have everything at your disposal in Lagos and the nearby area. So, just from a convenience standpoint, that's great. Restaurants, you can choose whatever you want. There's Portuguese, there's Spanish, tapas, empanadas, places, Indian restaurants, Mexican, I believe it was a burrito place. I actually had the empanadas there. And then there's also steakhouses, so Brazilian steakhouses and stuff like that. So you have your choice of type of restaurants that you can choose from just within the old town. So, lots of options. And that was definitely a pro for me because I love to eat. Third pro, activities. Tons of activities. As I mentioned, you can just stroll the streets for hours, checking out the old architecture. And you can see the difference between the Moors, the Christians, and stuff like that. So you have quite a bit of options to kind of check out. Then they have like the old, I think it's like the Dom Henrique Plaza, where you can just kind of sit out and people watch. There's the old church, I think it's like Santa Maria. And then you have the old fort, the old, walled city, tons of museums, stuff like that to kind of, check out. So lots of activities just within the city. Outside of the city, you have boat tours, kayaking tours, where you go around and check out the old grottos and caves in the area around Lagos. I think there's a nearby marina. There's an old fort. You have the local beaches, which are absolutely beautiful. I mean, just walking outside of the walls, the city walls, 100 meters, boom, you hit one of the closest beaches, which I believe is Praia dos Estudantes. You hit that one, and it's gorgeous. You have like the rocks jutting out of the ocean and out of the beach, and it's super picturesque. I'm sure it gets kind of crazy during the summer when the tourists come in, but when I was there was hardly anybody on the beach, and that was like in February or other part of February. So, convenience for beaches is great. And then if you keep going south from, Praia dos Estudantes, you have Praia do Camilo, and then there's a couple other beaches along the coast, and then you go all the way down to the very southern tip. You have what is it called, the Ponta da Piedade. I'm sure I'm butchering it, but basically it's all the grottos, and you have all the rocks coming out of the ocean, and they built a stairway where you can kind of go down and check it out, and you can take boat tours from there, and it is pretty dope. I was pretty surprised of how close everything was from a convenience standpoint, and then just from an activity standpoint is all the things that I enjoy. There's also hiking. There's a hiking trail that takes you all the way from Lagos all the way to Luz. I mentioned that in one of my other videos, but you can walk along the coast for hours and just marvel at the ocean and the cliffs and everything. So it's really cool. And there are a bunch of like secluded beaches that some of you can get to, and some of them are clothing optional for folks that are into that. But it gives you a variety of activities that you can enjoy and be a part of. So definitely from an activities standpoint, is definitely a plus. And like I mentioned, a bunch of museums and stuff too. There's the old fort right along the promenade, the walkway that's right along the water. So there's lots and lots of things to kind of check out while you're in the Lagos area. The next thing I'll talk about and hit on is single people and families and how you could fare, in Lagos. I will say, if you were single, it could be a good spot for you. It's one of the bigger cities in Algarve. I think in the area, roughly around 35,000, but in actual Lagos, it's roughly 20,000 people that are there all the time. So that bodes well for you compared to some of the other, smaller cities and villages. Just as a whole, a lot of the places I visited in Portugal were pretty desolate. So Lagos had quite a bit going on. People walking the streets, people out in cafes. So that's pretty cool. There were tons of bars and restaurants, and talking to some of the local people there, things get kind of happening during the summertime. Lots of parties, lots of people coming in from tourist standpoint. So you have that constant influx of, new people coming in. So it could bode well for you if you're single. So I think it's a good spot for single people. For families, I think it's a good spot too. You have all the local schools. I think inside the walled city or nearby, you have Portuguese schools. But outside, no more than like 15-minute drive, you do have access to international schools and private schools. So that's something to consider as well, because for families, you want to make sure, especially if you're American and you know how long you're going to be in Portugal, or you're British or whatever, or Eastern European, you may want a curriculum that's conducive to being able to transfer back to your home country after 10 years, because people are always considering what to do after the tax incentive, which is 10 years. So definitely something for families to consider. I think it's a good spot. There is two more things that I'll touch on from a pro perspective. And the first is transportation, public transportation. So there's a train or metro, I don't know what they call it, but it actually leaves from Faro and it goes all the way to Lagos. And Lagos is the last stop on that railway heading west. So there is access to public transportation. It's not particularly fast, but if you're someone who don't want to have a car, it could be an okay option for you. So I thought that was actually a pretty cool pro, because some of the other cities I visited, they don't have access to that type of public transportation. So that's something to consider. Then lastly, what I'll touch on is healthcare, because I know a lot of people are considering Algarve for retirement and stuff like that. So there is a larger hospital, unquote, in Lagos that can handle most of the issues that you may face from a healthcare perspective. But if there's something really serious that happens to you, most likely you're going to have to drive over to Portimao east. And I think that's where the larger hospital system is for any type of major surgeries and stuff like that. So, it is for your normal care. I think it's a good spot. Some of the other villages and cities I visited, they don't have very big hospitals, and they have like little clinics and stuff like that. So I don't know how important that is to you, but it's definitely something that I thought I should mention. All the pros, as I mentioned, it's quite a good list. So 3 cons, and that's it. Some of them may be deal breakers for some people, but for the most part, a couple of them are kind of minor from my perspective. But I feel like I would have to mention them, if you're considering Lagos. Very quick and dirty. First one is housing. Long and short, it's expensive. It's not a lot of supply. For a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom for a family of 4, it was slim pickings. We looked for months, and there were only maybe 1 or 2 that came that we could consider, and even then they weren't in great shape for our budget. So there isn't a lot. Most of the places that we found were like studios, single bedrooms. So if you're a single person, yeah, you could probably find something, but for a family, it's going to be kind of difficult. If you want to purchase, it's one of the more expensive places in Algarve, hands down. If you want like an American style house, over 2,000 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, and in pretty good condition, what I mean by that is good insulation. You're going to look at around 500,000 euros at a minimum. I've seen decent houses, what I mean decent by American standards, all the way up to 700. So that's something you got to consider, is that the price of housing is maybe a deal breaker for a lot of people in this area compared to other areas like in the Silver Coast, or further east in the Algarve. So looking further east in the Algarve, like at the very, very east, like towards Spain, you may find some cheaper places, but of course the population is a bit more sparse. So yeah, housing is a big con. Second con, tourist. The long and dirty of it. Tourists during the summer, we've been told it's pretty bad. Yeah, the influx of tourists, it gets pretty nutty. And if you're not looking forward to that and you want a place that's a bit more chill, a bit more quiet during the summer, you may have to look at another spot. So from a tourist perspective, that could be a deal breaker for a lot of people. Me, at least during the non-tourist months, because I was there in February, it was pretty chill. I didn't see a lot of tourists. There were a handful kind of walking around. There wasn't a lot of noise and partying and stuff like that. So I think if you're okay with just dealing with it during the summers, Lagos may be okay. But I caveat that with we were just coming out of the lifting of the COVID restrictions in Portugal. So I don't know if that had something to do with it, but I will caveat it with that. And then the last con is the weather. I've been told during the summer it gets pretty hot. So if you're a person that doesn't like really, really hot temperatures during the summer, you may not want to consider Lagos. I found Praia de Luz would be cooler, at least by 10 degrees on the same day. 10 degrees Fahrenheit on the same day. So, there's something to consider. And there was always a breeze in Luz. Lagos, there was no breeze. So it felt significantly hotter, which for me at the time in February was great because it was pushing the temperatures up to like around 77, 78 degrees Fahrenheit, which is very enjoyable for me. So, just something to consider if you're a person who do not like very, very hot temperatures during the summer. Lagos may not be for you, and it may be a deal breaker. So, once again, overall, I like Lagos. The vibe was great. It has everything that I need from a family perspective, beyond the higher cost of housing that I have to consider. But, like everyone else, you could offset that when you travel by putting your house on Airbnb if you're okay with that, because I'm sure you can make a pretty penny renting your house out during the summer months like everyone else. So that may help offset some of the higher cost of buying in the Algarve in general, but more so in Lagos. So, something to consider. Overall, as I mentioned, it's a very beautiful place, and it actually rose to the top of my list, to number 2 on my list as places to relocate in Portugal. Shockingly, I enjoyed it that much. So definitely check out Lagos if you're in the Algarve, and see if it could work for you, based on your particular criteria and your needs. And I do have some additional footage for the folks that stuck around to this end of the very southern tip of Lagos, down in the point and the grottos and stuff like that. So hope you enjoy it. Thank you.